Hello, everyone. We are starting session 3. So here we are. We have discussed various issues about children and care and parenting, and now we are looking at some of the concerns that when we see TikTok uses children. So we have, again, lots of various angles from the UK and Australia. So we are kicking off with the first presenter, Jessica sorry about my pronunciation. Jessica Balanzategui, sorry again, from Royal Melbourne Institute Technology, Skinnamarink and the algorithmic uncanny interface between children's TikTok and horror film cultures. So floor is yours.
Thank you for that introduction. Yes, my name is Jessica Balanzategui. I'm a senior lecturer in media at RMIT. So today I'm talking about the feature film Skinnamarink, which is Kyle Edward Ball's surprise micro-budget horror film sensation of late 2022. This film gained unexpected international exposure at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, by going viral on TikTok after a film festival accidentally leaked the film online. And I say the film was a surprising sensation for 3 intersecting reasons, which I'm going to be talking about today. So interrogation of this intersection of the unexpected illuminates distinctive specificities of TikTok's algorithmic logic in ways that also highlight the platform's provocation of shifting boundaries between children's and adult entertainment cultures. So I argue that Skinnamarink TikTok aligns with my previous theorization of the algorithmic uncanny, which is a mode built around a troubling of child and adult-oriented content boundaries. This uncanniness, I previously argued, was driven in part by a perception that algorithms have played a key role in not only distributing the content, but in shaping its aesthetic and thematic agendas. So this argument was around so-called disturbing children's YouTube content. So the research I'm presenting on today integrates screen and digital platform qualitative analysis methods, including discursive, textual, and genre analysis, and an iterative process of inductive coding of what I'm calling Skinnamarink TikTok content. So I'm offering some early findings and provocations in this presentation. So the first surprise around Skinnamarink is that the film attracted international exposure at all. So Skinnamarink was made on a tiny $15,000 crowd-funded budget in the filmmaker's childhood home with equipment that he'd borrowed from the non-profit Film and Video Art Society of Alberta. So this lo-fi experimental horror film's life cycle after its film festival screenings likely would have been very short, but the online leak led to a snowballing of word of mouth that eventually led to viral TikTok meme creation. And this virality was propelled by unusual synergies between TikTok meme and challenge cultures and the themes, aesthetics, and narrative structure of this experimental horror film. This is a graph from analysis carried out by Quilt AI, which is an AI-based insights firm that looks at internet trends, shows how Google searches for the film snowballed and peaked in December last year. And this article goes on to point out that it was Google that kind of started this, but it was really TikTok that was the true force behind Skinnamarink's sudden popularity. So the AI analysis points out that there were 3 TikTok videos in particular that initiated this, produced in a 2-week period in November 2022. They produced 4.2 million views within that timeframe. And by January, the hashtag Skinnamarink had 24 million views. And this online buzz led to a limited kind of global theatrical release in January this year. Again, something very unusual for such an experimental micro-budget lo-fi debut feature. The other surprise around Skinnamarink's global success by TikTok is the film's seeming misalignment with the algorithmic dynamics of TikTok as a platform. So TikTok, as we know, is built around short form video content delivered via rapid fire algorithmic distributive logics. Yet this experimental horror film is notorious for its languorously slow pace and lack of narrative action. So Skinnamarink essentially depicts the confused perspective of an insomniac child as he's wandering his family home in the middle of the night. and he soothes his fears with cartoons and toys. But in the film, these stereotypical signifiers of children's culture are gradually repositioned as threatening sources of dread. So that his toys, his cartoons, they all seemingly turn on him, infected by an enigmatic, malevolent force that plays with the child like his own toy. So Skinamarink deploys this very lo-fi aesthetic in the style of VHS video to capture this child protagonist's drowsy, kind of confused perspective. The film's constituted of these strangely framed black and white long takes that are bathed in this looping digital filter. And spoiler alert, again, nothing much happens during the film. For most of its hour and 40-minute duration, the viewer is forced to kind of search the grainy frame for signs of movement. So one of the key themes in my inductive thematic coding of Skinamarink content is boring. So unusually for a horror movie, Skinamarink is actually in the mode of slow cinema, which is a contemplative mode, as DeLuca puts it, grounded in stillness, silence, and duration. So slow cinema is actually often relationally defined as an oppositional reaction to the overstimulating pace of participatory digital cultures. So Gronstad, for instance, talks about this chasm between fast and slow that has widened in the past decade, and slow cinema as a reaction against this. And obviously TikTok's ultra fast-paced short clips epitomize Gronstad's kind of criticism of contemporary media's problematic speed. Yet it's via this platform, TikTok, that Skinamarink's slow images have found resonance with global audiences. And the third surprising intrigue around Skinamarink's TikTok virality is how this horror movie, which has been described as the scariest of 2022, or even of all time in a lot of journalistic commentary, how this horror movie resonates with young people's participatory digital cultures via TikTok. So propelled by TikTok's algorithmic distribution logics, two key images from the film were key to its virality. So one of these was a Fisher-Price toy phone, and another of this seemingly headless Barbie doll levitating from the ceiling. And also there are lots of reaction videos from young people documenting their bodily response to the film. So this is a popular component of Skinamarink TikTok. And there's a crossover with Skinamarink TikTok content and children's nursery rhyme content. Given the name of the film is taken from a famous Canadian children's nursery rhyme by Sharon Lewis and Bram. So this song has been covered by children's entertainers around the world, including the Wiggles. And there's a TikTok content category for this nursery rhyme tagged children and babies. So there's been this cross-pollination of nursery rhyme and horror movie content through Skinamarink on TikTok in an explicit disruption of children's and adult-oriented content boundaries. So across these three intersections of the unexpected, this surprise global exposure via TikTok, TikTok virality of this experimental example of slow cinema, and also this provocative mixing of child and adult digital cultures. Through this kind of intersection of the unexpected, Skinamarink TikTok occupies this algorithmic uncanny mode, which I've written about before in relation to disturbing children's content on YouTube. So as I previously argued, this algorithmic uncanny raises significant cultural anxieties amongst adult viewers in particular, ignited by the seeming indifference to child appropriateness of YouTube's ambivalent platform logics, to use Jean Burgess's terms. And TikTok's platform and algorithmic distributive logics are, of course, similarly indifferent to cultural expectations around child-appropriate content. But beyond the ambivalence of TikTok's platform logics, as Hutia et al. Have argued, TikTok's short-form mimetic video content also tends to be inherently ambivalent. So this is the content itself has ambivalence. They write about how it tends to leave viewers to derive meaning from their own knowledge. So in this way, TikTok's content style is arguably more ambivalent than YouTube's. And Skinamarink's global popularity via TikTok resonates with this content-based ambivalence. Furthermore, Aberdeen has written about how TikTok amends previous logics of visibility. So she highlights the platform's post-based virality model versus other platforms' profile-based popularity, meaning that content-based trends are privileged in TikTok visibility strategies over the development of cohesive kind of personal brands. So Skinnamarink images, through their aestheticization of this uncanny and ambivalent collision of child-adult cultures, became like these algorithmic, uncanny, mimetic emblems for the film. And they're kind of productively embroiled in TikTok's content-based logics of visibility, tied to these aesthetically compelling but quite ambivalent content trends. So in tandem with these visibility logics, Skinnamarink TikTok integrates with the genre of challenge-based memes. So Skinnamarink takes on the challenge structure in looser ways than is typical of the types of trends analysed in previous research. So challenge-esque Skinnamarink TikTok content typically involves simply watching this most terrifying film of 2022 and recounting the experience, or these kind of reaction videos to particularly terrifying scenes, which involve kind of bodily reactions. On the other end of the spectrum, we have these reaction videos that center around boredom, as given the film's slowness. So in both cases, the challenge is around enduring the film. So this horror film-based incarnation of intensified play that Yvonne Kurzrock has previously identified in relation to TikTok content.
Sorry, Jessica, to interrupt you. 1 minute left. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you. This intensified play, in line with what Kurzrock has identified, also aligns with the challenge dynamic that Survey and Devon have written about. They argue that TikTok challenge content is built around the completion of a goal, an invitation for others to share and participate. And they also outline the importance to this of viral performances in challenge content. So they write about challenges as play-based collaborative tasks governed by a set of performative rules. And they tie this to affect and performances of bodily response, engendered, they argue, by the platform's vernacular of body performativity, in which users enlist their bodies to create successful meme-based challenge videos to be credited with algorithmic attention. And the horror genre at large is, of course, one of the most bodily affect-driven of genres. It's all in the name. It is, after all, one of Linda Williams' body genres, and Skinnamarink in particular is a film driven not by narrative logic, but these kind of bodily reactions. So the film is very well suited to this vernacular of bodily performativity that drives TikTok challenge content. So ultimately, Skinnamarink TikTok operates in accordance with what I've previously defined as the algorithmic uncanny, and in particular illuminates how TikTok's dynamic of play extends this provocative aesthetic mode in new directions. So with Skinnamarink TikTok's dynamics of ambivalent and uncanny play, we can see participatory children's culture kind of spilling freely into adult cultures and vice versa.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Now it's time to wrap up, to finish it. Thank you very much. So now we are moving from the horror to some sexual, some gender, some concerning things about teenage girls. The paper revisiting the nymphatic aesthetic, TikTok's response to Tumblr's sexually attractive girl. Summer Gamble from St. Mary's University from UK. Now, so now we are moving to the crime part, and also looking at the information, misinformation and sensationalism in social media and TikTok. So this is presented by Megan Lupton, Montfort University in the UK. So now it's yours.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Brilliant. So firstly, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you everyone for coming along. I'll do a very quick content warning before we start. As you can imagine, there'll be discussions of suicide, self-harm, graphic violence and criminal cases. So I urge you to protect your well-being, protect your peace if you don't want to engage with those topics. True crime has really taken over TikTok. The true crime hashtag has 31.8 billion views to date. Content ranging from chilling serial killer quotes to true crime themed multi-part makeup tutorials are accessible without an account, and therefore without the age verification measures that stop children from accessing graphic or inappropriate content. In my PhD research, I'm investigating the ethical issues of true crime and how content can harm audiences of all ages, including children. This presentation will explore how children can access true crime videos on TikTok, the harm that such content can cause, and what we as researchers and adults can do to protect young people from graphic material. So as mentioned, I'm completing a practice research PhD. It's a work in progress. The practice element is a fictional novel and accompanying true crime podcast where my protagonist investigates a cold case. As an amateur true crime podcaster, she doesn't have the appropriate media training or experience, which leads her to use unethical practices. And over the course of her investigation, readers experience firsthand the harm this can cause to victims and their families, as well as young audiences. My protagonist must confront the reality that children view her true crime content and then take the steps needed to limit the potential harm she causes to young people. Additionally, I've generated empirical data from 8 semi-structured interviews with true crime podcasters. The participants' experiences and perceptions of the ethical issues associated with true crime have informed the creative decisions in my novel, which I intend to be an easily accessible source of research for true crime practitioners and audiences. Finally, I'm developing an ethical reflections framework that will equip practitioners with the knowledge needed to produce ethical true crime content on TikTok and other platforms. So let's talk about TikTok. The Centre for Countering Digital Hate describes TikTok's For You page as an endlessly scrollable stream of algorithmically recommended video content. Say that 5 times fast. TikTok's AI recommended content means that users are continuously shown relevant videos, a feature that's been credited to the platform's addictive nature. Data by Ofcom reports that 51% of British children aged between 8 and 12 use TikTok, and of that, 71% of children aged between 8 and 17 set up their own TikTok accounts. These figures are concerning considering that a third of British children on social media use a false age of 18+, giving them access to adult-rated content. The National Literacy Trust found that only 2% of children have the skills needed to identify misinformation and speculation, 2 common issues in true crime content on TikTok. If young people access true crime content on TikTok and do not have the media literacy to separate misinformation from fact, it could lead to the perpetuation of harmful ideologies and stereotypes. Reports have even found that TikTok's algorithm recommends inappropriate content to children. In a study, researchers pretended to be 13-year-olds with TikTok accounts and recorded the first 30 minutes of algorithmically recommended content. Within 2.6 minutes of scrolling through the app, TikTok started recommending posts about self-harm. Topics like suicide and self-harm are commonly discussed in true crime content on TikTok, as evidenced with the texting suicide case where Conrad Roy was manipulated by Michelle Carter into committing suicide. I found that without a TikTok account, I and therefore child users could access video content containing messages between Roy and Carter, where Carter outlines exactly how Roy should die by suicide. So my research focuses on content surrounding criminal cases, like the disappearance of Nicola Bulley. Bulley's case proved popular on TikTok, with the tag Nicola Bulley Conspiracy receiving over 492.7 million views. Bulley went missing on the 27th of January 2023. A TikTok user then visited the scene of Bulley's disappearance, crossed police lines, and recorded her body being removed from the River Wye. He then uploaded the video to TikTok and other social media platforms. Even if TikTok had flagged the video as inappropriate for children, the vast number of underage users pretending to be 18+ means it's likely that children view the video of Bulley's body being removed from the river. There's been significant research also into how violent depictions in mass media impact young people. The influence of media violence on youth in 2003 claimed that the conversation has been circulating for over 5 years. TikTok did not exist in 2003, obviously, but the addictive nature of the site lends itself to the category that they described as interactive media on the internet. The Journal of Adolescent Health also urges that violence in the media can have a detrimental effect on children's well-being and even increase the risk of violent behavior as young people become desensitized to violence. Additionally, psychologists have highlighted that true crime content can make people feel scared to leave the house, cause symptoms of anxiety, and leave audiences more fearful of others. Self-regulation in children has been described as a skill that needs to be taught and practiced. Considering that some children may lack self-regulation, they may be more susceptible to feelings of anxiety when exposed to true crime content on TikTok. Without the emotional maturity needed to manage anxiety or independently limit their exposure to graphic content, combined with TikTok's addictive nature, true crime content may pose significant risks to young people's well-being. An article on the presentation of crime in news media stated that violent crimes are often overrepresented in the media, which can lead to a rise of fear and moral panic. The National Centre for the Analysis of Violent Crime even released a monograph where they clarified that serial murder was a relatively rare event despite our macabre interest in the topic that far exceeds its scope. A review into the approachability of young people found that some children lack the capacity for reasonable judgment, which leads to incorrect or unfounded beliefs. Without critical thinking skills, child users on TikTok who watch true crime content may believe themselves to be more at risk of murder or violence than crime statistics actually reflect, leading to increased anxiety. An interesting finding in my research specifically has been criticism of true crime on TikTok from within the true crime community. From my interviews with true crime podcasters and through comments on my true crime Instagram page, I found that several podcasters expressed disgust or disappointment towards creators on TikTok. Common criticism included how TikTok creators do not consider the feelings of the victims or their family, they spread disinformation, and how the podcasters believe that TikTok's algorithm rewards graphic or inappropriate content. When asked about children's exposure to their content, the practitioners expressed that though they do not believe it to be their responsibility to protect young people, they take measures to prevent children from accessing their content, using content warnings and the platform's inbuilt explicit content tags. Many of the practitioners expressed that children will seek out inappropriate content whether we want them to or not, and so we should be educated to the dangers of graphic or speculative social media posts. So in conclusion, to make platforms safer, the Centre for Countering Digital Hate offers its STAR framework: safety by design, transparency of algorithms, accountability and responsibility of big tech companies. The targeted approach holds a mirror up to sites like TikTok, so they can question if they are doing enough to protect children. I'm personally developing an ethical reflections framework that will target true crime practitioners specifically, as I believe they're also responsible for children's safety. My guide will encourage practitioners to use evidence-based information, preface their opinions with a disclaimer, and include a content warning if they use graphic language or discuss distressing topics. With better education for true crime practitioners, media literacy training in schools, and stronger regulations for social media platforms, we can better prepare children for a world where true crime content on TikTok receives over 30 billion combined views. Thank you so much for letting me share my research.
No worries. Thank you very much for very useful and very practical suggestions that I'm sure that we can develop it further in the Q&A session. Now we are moving to the final presenter, Emily Munro, who is joining from Australia, Telethon Kids Institute and University of Western Australia. She will be presenting a paper, The Representation of Dieting Behaviors on TikTok, a Descriptive Content Analysis. So over to you.
I'm Emily Munro, and it's an honour to join you online today to share my research about the representation of dieting behaviours on TikTok. I'm presenting from Perth, Western Australia, which always was and always will be Whadjuk Noongar country. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend this to the native people of the lands that everyone is joining from today. I'm presenting this research on behalf of my colleagues and co-authors at Telethon Kids Institute, who are listed on this slide, and I'd just like to acknowledge their contributions to this work as well. Our collective experience in psychology, dietetics, child development, and health promotion has informed this work. This project is a part of a wider collaboration project at Telethon Kids Institute, investigating several topics on TikTok. And just as a trigger warning, I will be touching on the issue of eating disorders in this presentation. So why is it important to understand how dieting is being represented on TikTok, and how does this affect children and young people? Well, as decades of research has shown, children's behaviours are heavily influenced by observational learning. Children closely watch the behaviours of adults and role models and mimic their behaviours. Social media has recently become a major cause of observational learning for children, especially with the rise of influencers who act as role models. TikTok is a particularly popular platform amongst children and young people with idealised content around diet culture. Childhood and adolescence is a critical period of growth, which requires an adequate amount of nutrition for optimal development. So we do need to consider the implications when children are overexposed to dieting messages. Using the protocol for descriptive content analysis, which was developed by our team, we analysed 50 videos under each of the 5 hashtags relating to our topic, with 250 videos in total. Firstly, we identified the most popular hashtags relating to our aims. At the time of collection, hashtag diet had over 21.5 billion views. Hashtag what I eat in a day had over 13.4 billion views. Hashtag dietitian had over 1.6 billion views, and so on. So you can understand the topic's importance for research and its wide-ranging impact on young people. We developed a codebook to categorise and analyse the dieting content on TikTok through several rounds of refinement and clarification. Since TikTok is a rapidly changing platform, our aims are to simply give a snapshot of the dieting content at this one point in time. To report how dieting behaviours and advice is represented on TikTok, we gathered the frequency of factors such as the specific diets portrayed, like fasting and vegan diets, the goals of the diets, if they were specified, such as weight loss, weight gain, muscle gain, reference to body image, both positive and negative, body checking, which was defined as a hyper-focus on one's appearance. So people will often do this when showing a comparison of their body's appearance before and after a diet. And the certain eating behaviours which were portrayed. So this was defined from a psychological perspective of intuitive eating, which means eating for the purpose of performing daily functions, including eating when hungry and listening to the body's needs and physical cues. Behaviours were categorised as excessive eating, restrictive eating, disordered, or healthy and intuitive eating. So our findings show that eating disorders were specifically mentioned in 17 videos. 1/3 of all videos referenced body image, of which half of those were representing negative body image, or if you're an optimist, half were representing positive body image. About 20% portrayed body checking, so that comparing their body between certain time points, and the portrayal of extreme disordered eating or eating disorders were portrayed in 6.4% of the videos in the sample. Although this is a relatively small number, if a user engages with only one of these videos in their scrolling, they will likely be exposed to similar videos through the algorithm. Another significant finding was that healthy eating behaviours were highly prevalent, with over half of videos portraying this. We found almost half of the videos were instructional or educational, and advice that was provided came from 2 types of sources that we identified. So 63% from self-proclaimed experts and 36% from users with lived experience who were sharing what worked for them in their diet, how they lost weight, and other anecdotal evidence. And the most common type of experts that we found were mostly dietitians and health and wellness coaches, doctors, fitness trainers, and nutritionists. So it was encouraging to see that there are many great examples of high quality, evidence-based and balanced nutrition education on TikTok, being delivered by highly engaging, humorous and authentic health professionals who are using the platform to educate the public. However, anyone can claim to be an expert on TikTok, which may increase their credibility and the user's trust in what they're saying. Therefore, we tested if this was significantly associated with engagement of those videos. Our analysis found that claiming expertise was not significantly associated with video engagement. However, qualitative research could investigate users' perceptions of the reliability and trustworthiness of information presented to them by experts on TikTok, and if this has any influence on their actual behaviours. Other variables that were not significantly associated with engagement includes the portrayal of disordered eating, providing advice, and the length of the video. The fact that providing advice was not significant shows that users are engaging equally with videos sharing lived experience or their daily life of creators. Unsurprisingly though, humour was significantly associated with higher likes, comments and shares. Also, males were more likely than females to report that their goal of dieting was in relation to gym performance and muscle gain. And interestingly, males were also more likely to disclose weight loss as a motivation for their diet as compared to females. One possible explanation could be that females are less inclined to talk about weight loss on public platforms than males are. Future research could further explore these gender differences in more detail. The implications of our research suggest that the high prevalence of body checking in conjunction with dieting on TikTok promotes the idea that weight and body shape is the sole indicator of health and beauty, and that it must be manipulated through food. As we all know, dieting can be a really effective method for losing weight. However, health is complex and goes beyond someone's weight or body shape. Specifically for children and adolescents, a fixation on the thin ideal and diet culture in the media they consume is concerning, as this may undermine the importance of eating sufficient food for energy and growth. The TikTok algorithm pushes content that may exaggerate or sometimes distort reality. So normalizing diet culture may promote the perception that everyone eats like this and everyone looks like this. Young people are increasingly fed this content if they engage with it. So that's possibly exacerbating existing insecurities and predispositions for eating disorders or negative body image. The saturation and extreme popularity of diet culture on TikTok may create an unrealistic social pressure on young people to constantly eat and look a certain way. And the content does appear to contain guilt-inducing messages about food that promotes a hyperfixation on food and nutrition. Our study has shown that billions of users are seeking and being exposed to advice about dieting and nutrition on TikTok, which does have the potential for misinformation and the distortion of reality through the normalization of diet culture, which carries particular risks for young people. But to end on a positive note, this also presents us with an opportunity for health professionals to widely disseminate evidence-based nutrition education that promotes intuitive eating, supportive of children's health and development. And as our study found, some are already successfully doing this and paving the way for health promotion in the digital age. Thank you, everyone. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Emily. It was very wonderful presentation about children's health and also diet issues on TikTok. So now we are in a Q&A session. So please turn on your camera back on, panelists. Okay, so we have a lot of questions about, because in relation to the topics that we have discussed, a lot of questions about children's health agencies and also the algorithms of TikTok. So one quick question, so there are a few questions about TikTok algorithm and also related to the topics that we have discussed. So question from the Zoom Q&A session from Hannah German. Emily, amazing work. So wondering, were you able to look at how algorithms play a role with negative body images and disordered eating disorder content?
So our research was categorized into the 5 hashtags. So this doesn't necessarily represent a user's natural experience of scrolling through TikTok and the influence of the algorithm in that. For the purposes of research, that was the most logical way to investigate the representation of dieting behaviours on TikTok, but that is something that we'll consider following the natural experience of watching TikTok and how the algorithm might play into what content comes up on people's feeds.
Wonderful. And also another question that was sent through my DM Twitter account to Jessica, because you mentioned about networked algorithm and also the ambiguous and also the uncanny algorithm of that is based on your previous research. So one question from my DM is, you mentioned children's enactment of TikTok's logic of visibility alongside want to be seen by the algorithm and also other users. Were there also other strategies on how to avoid the unwanted attention from non-intended audiences, like which is the opposite of the virality? So perhaps you can speak a bit about like how they have avoided the content moderations or policing or criticism, etc.
Great, thank you. That's such an excellent question. Surprisingly, no, I haven't detected much of an attempt to get to be invisible or less visible. And I think this is related to these issues of ambivalence that I've been talking about, because Skinamarink as a film actually doesn't have any really explicit horror content that would directly contravene the TikTok community guidelines around shocking and graphic content, which are all about gory, gruesome, disturbing, extremely violent content. Disturbing is obviously a very vague term, but I think this is a key element of the distinctiveness of Skinamarink TikTok and how it's ambivalent and aligns with the algorithmic uncanny, because there is nothing explicit in any of this kind of imagery or commentary that defies those guidelines, those community guidelines.
Interesting. I think this is really interesting venue to explore, not just about TikTok, but also about, like the social media, like a video streaming social media by looking at YouTube and also TikTok. And probably we can also this question can be applicable to that angle that is sent to Summer about networked aspect between Tumblr and also TikTok. Sorry about my saying Tumblr, Twitter. There are many social media platforms. Their names are so confusing all the times. Sorry about that. So Summer, this question was sent to you through my DM. Very interesting question. Very interesting research on Lorita and also gender studies on social media. So can you tell me a bit about networked aspect of TikTok and Tumblr, especially for children? Do you think children's peer culture affect such a facilitation or sharing of the Tumblr culture across the different social media platforms?
Definitely. I think they both act as sort of imitation publics, and I think Tumblr's sort of dropping on the end of its content stream because of its content policies and things like that. So TikTok's sort of filling in its place. But in terms of children's peer relativity and peer culture, I think coming off of the back end of COVID, their socialization skills aren't what they used to be. And that face-to-face contact that they get to in school, and I think Delane mentions the school is the best place for media literacy learning. It's difficult for some of them. I work in a school, and it's interesting to see how children interact with each other. And there's another sort of finding on network publics, especially on TikTok, where users are encouraged to interact with a content as opposed to a content creator. So it's, again, that's that facade that facilitates this influence with children, especially at such an impressionable age. I mean, I'm looking at 9 to 14. So yeah, I think there's a definite impact of children and their peer-to-peer relations.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And this question is for Megan. Very fascinating question, research. I have a question. What is distinctive about true crime as a genre on TikTok? So we have discussed about algorithm, network aspect, and also the peer culture across different social media platforms. So now this is about TikTok per se. Like we have known TikTok. A lot of journalists have mentioned about TikTok discuss TikTok as a very concerning, platform compared to other social media platforms. So when we talk about this misinformation or crime in general, what is so distinctive about TikTok in relation to true crime as a genre? And has the phenomenon and its impact or consequences been exacerbated or diminished in any way on TikTok?
Thank you. A fantastic question. I think when we think about true crime, we often think about podcasting or documentaries, those sort of longer form content, but obviously TikTok is short form content. So you find a lot of the creators lean more towards kind of very more graphic, upfront, maybe a bit more speculative, maybe a bit more clickbaity. They know they have to capture audiences very quickly as they scroll through. And I think another interesting element of true crime on TikTok is that though they are discussing graphic content, what it will most commonly be is someone standing in front of a blank background with a little microphone, or with the microphone on their headphones, or they'll be on a green screen. So it's not necessarily them showing the graphic content up front, as you may see on a true crime documentary on TV, but they are describing and using graphic language. And I think that raises interesting questions around whether that is appropriate for children. There was a case study that I didn't include in the presentation, but of a female presenting speaker talking about a murder, and the language she was using was incredibly graphic, but I was able to access that video without a TikTok account. So I think that really defines true crime on TikTok. It's very graphic up front, and it leans more towards the marketing techniques and the engagement techniques used in short form content.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for all your excellent insights about different topics that we find a bit concerning, but also very important in our society, especially for children. So this question is from me, based on my privilege as the chair of this session. So one quick question to everybody. So if you can join TikTok as maybe like a counseling member for children's safety, and also the playful children's safety, and also culture in relation to the topics you guys have discussed. So what will be the one thing that you can fix if you can change the features or the functions or affordances of TikTok to protect children from that concerning aspects?
I'm happy to go first. I didn't want to interrupt anyone. I think for me personally, I would want the explicit content kind of barriers that they have for young people to have more of a human element to them. Obviously, it's an algorithm and it is all automated, but what I would want to see personally is considering wider types of content as potentially graphic or inappropriate to children, and not specifically visual content, looking at more audio content as being inappropriate for young people that may not be picked up on in the explicit content barriers they have for children.
I'll jump in to echo what Megan just said. We were talking about YouTube a second ago as well, and YouTube's just been through a similar series of disasters and problems in relation to this, but the explicit guidelines around disturbing content are very, very, very vague, and obviously the algorithm is not finely tuned to what our cultural expectations around child-oriented versus distinctively adult content. So I think some more human moderation and agreeing with Megan, fine-tuning of what actually qualifies as disturbing content is needed.
I'll just jump in now as well. I noted that Summer in her presentation, she picked up that TikTok had banned a certain hashtag, but users they work through that by spelling it in a different way and coming up with different words to represent the same thing that might be potentially harmful for people to come across, especially young children. So that's one of the things that I found in our sample of videos as well, is that people would be using other ways to spell things like anorexia or bulimia or eating disorder, and that community grows through that hashtag, which represents harmful content, but it's still allowed on the platform just because of the limitations of moderating the content. So yeah, just thinking about how to get around things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think with children especially, if there's a way to get information that's sort of sneaky and sort of under the covers, they're going to try and find that. So if there's a way to sort of circumvent, I know you're not going to be able to get every single misspelling of a word, but a way to sort of navigate through that. And or sort of a more positive side, if we are going to alter the algorithm, ideally, representation-wise, giving people who want to follow certain fashion aesthetics the opportunity to identify with people who look like them, and seeing that aesthetics are not reserved for a single race or a body ideal or things like that. That would be my wish.
Thank you so much for all the wonderful answers to a very, very broad question. And also we learned a lot about, like gender aspect, and also health issues and algorithms, and also about the true crimes like misinformation in our society in this digital era. So that was very, very fascinating session. Again, thank you very much. And we are taking a very short break, about like 4 minutes, and then we'll coming back with the fun part, children and play culture and TikTok, with Professor Tama Liver as our moderator. Thank you again. So we'll see you soon.